Welcome to the latest developments in the escalating conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran, right here on the U.S. Strategic Insight Channel. The Middle East has now entered day 44 of this brutal confrontation, and the glittering facade of diplomacy has been completely stripped away. The hands that once confidently controlled the game from afar are now beginning to tremble, as the situation is no longer confined to memos in Washington, but has been dragged violently down to the ground by fire, steel, and deadly projectiles originating from the Far East. While the world remains fixated on ground clashes and fierce missile exchanges across the Middle East, a shocking move has just sent tremors through the Pentagon and Tel Aviv. Iran has secretly received 200 brand new Su-57 Felon fighter jets directly from Vladimir Putin. Yes, you heard that correctly. Not 20, not 50, but 200 advanced fifth-generation stealth fighters have quietly touched down on Iranian territory under the cover of darkness. This is not just another arms deal. This is a game-changing strategic maneuver that has transformed Iran overnight from a regional power into an aerial superpower in the Middle East. Right now, as I speak, the countdown has already begun. Tel Aviv has less than 24 hours left to prepare for an unprecedented aerial storm before the skies over Israel turn into a blazing inferno. The once impenetrable Israeli airspace is about to be ripped apart by Russian engineering and Iranian iron will. America and Israel's prized jewel, the F-35 Lightning II, is on the verge of becoming completely useless in the face of this new stealth nightmare descending from above. And most shockingly, in the heart of Washington, President Trump has remained eerily, disturbingly silent. Is the so-called deal-maker carefully calculating his next move, or is he simply stunned by how rapidly the balance of power has shifted? This is not merely another escalation. This is the beginning of the end of Western air superiority in the Middle East. Why did Putin choose this exact moment to arm Iran with a weapon that could fundamentally alter the game? How can these Su-57s turn the once invincible F-35 into an expensive flying target? And what truly lies behind America's worrying silence at this critical hour? Brace yourself, because in the next 24 hours, the world may witness a military transformation that will reshape the entire geopolitical landscape for decades to come. If you want to stay ahead of the mainstream narrative and get the most hard-hitting, uncensored analysis of this rapidly changing conflict, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join our growing community right now. Don't miss a single update. The truth is unfolding faster than ever. How did this unprecedented transfer happen without a single leak from Western intelligence agencies? In a meticulously orchestrated operation that spanned several weeks, Russian transport aircraft, disguised under civilian cargo routes and escorted by electronic warfare planes, slipped through the night skies over Iraq and Syria. Under the cover of total radio silence and heavy jamming, they delivered the first wave of Su-57 Felon fighters straight into hardened Iranian air bases deep in the desert. This was no ordinary arms shipment. Putin personally greenlit the transfer of 200 Su-57s, an astonishing number that exceeds Russia's own current operational fleet. These are not downgraded export versions. These are fully combat-capable, fifth-generation beasts equipped with the latest upgrades: advanced AESA radar, thrust vectoring engines for unmatched supermaneuverability, internal weapons bays carrying hypersonic missiles, and next-level electronic warfare suites that can blind entire enemy air defense networks. Why would Moscow risk such a bold move? Because the alliance between Russia and Iran has evolved far beyond simple trade. It has become a full-spectrum strategic partnership forged in the fires of mutual survival. Iran supplies Russia with thousands of lethal drones for the Ukrainian front, while Moscow repays the debt with game-changing air power that Tehran desperately needs to counter Israeli and American dominance. For decades, the Iranian Air Force has been flying outdated American Phantoms and Tigers from the 1970s relics that are easy prey for modern fighters. Overnight, that weakness has been erased. 200 Su-57s give Iran the ability to establish air superiority across the Persian Gulf, challenge Israeli F-35 operations, and project power deep into the Mediterranean if necessary. The logistics were masterful. Aircraft were disassembled in Russia, flown in massive Antonov and Il-76 transports, then rapidly reassembled by joint Russian-Iranian technical teams already trained in secret facilities. By the time Western satellites noticed unusual activity, the jets were already tucked away in mountain bunkers, armed, fueled, and ready for immediate deployment. This secret delivery doesn't just modernize Iran's air force, it shatters the long-standing assumption that only the United States and its closest allies can operate fifth-generation stealth fighters in the region. The balance of aerial power in the Middle East has been flipped in a single, silent stroke. And the most terrifying part, these 200 Su-57C are only the beginning. More waves are already in motion, and the skies above the region will never look the same again. If you've watched this far, hit the subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. Which country do you support in this conflict, Iran or Israel? Let us know your thoughts. Now let's talk raw power. What makes these 200 Su-57S so devastating that they render America's crown jewel, the F-35 Lightning II, suddenly obsolete in the skies over the Middle East? The Su-57 Felon is a true air dominance monster built for high-intensity combat, powered by twin AL-41F1 engines, with rumors of the even more powerful Isdelia 177 already integrated in the latest batches. It can supercruise at Mach 1.3 and sprint 2 over Mach 2 at altitude. That means Iranian pilots can close distances faster, strike first, and disengage before enemy fighters can react. Its super maneuverability is on another level. Thanks to three-dimensional thrust vectoring nozzles, the Su-57 can perform extreme high-alpha maneuvers that no Western fighter, including the F-35, can match. In a within-visual range dogfight, it becomes a lethal brawler that can point its nose anywhere while maintaining energy and control. The radar system is equally frightening. The N-36 Bielka AESA radar, combined with side-looking arrays, gives nearly 270-degree coverage, far wider than the F-35's forward-focused AN/APG-81. This allows Su-57 pilots to detect, track, and engage multiple targets simultaneously from almost any angle while feeding data to advanced infrared search and track systems and laser-based missile warning suites. Internally, the Su-57 carries a massive weapons loadout, long-range R-37M hypersonic air-to-air missiles that can hit targets over 400 kilometers away, plus a deadly array of precision-guided munitions for ground and sea strikes. Its larger internal bays allow heavier payloads without sacrificing stealth profile in the opening phases of an attack. Compare that to the F-35. While the Lightning II boasts excellent all-aspect stealth and revolutionary sensor fusion, it is slower, less agile, and critically limited in speed and range when operating in contested airspace. Its combat radius shrinks dramatically when carrying meaningful ordnance, and its single engine simply cannot compete with the twin-engine power and thrust vectoring of the Su-57's dynamic, high-threat environments. In real-world terms, the F-35 was designed as a networked, stealthy, multi-role platform meant to avoid close combat through superior detection. But against 200 Su-57S operating in coordinated swarms with Iranian ground-based air defenses, that advantage evaporates. The Russian jets can use their speed and maneuverability to dictate the terms of engagement, forcing the slower, less agile F-35S into defensive positions where their expensive stealth becomes less decisive. The billions poured into the F-35 program now face their greatest humiliation: a cheaper, faster, more agile opponent that was built to fight and win, not just hide. With Iran now fielding 200 of these beasts, the era of unchallenged Western air superiority in the region is coming to a dramatic and irreversible end. With 200 Su-57S now fully operational on Iranian soil, the clock is ticking. Tel Aviv has less than 24 hours before the most devastating aerial assault in modern Middle Eastern history is unleashed. Imagine the scenario unfolding right now inside Iranian command bunkers. Iranian and Russian planners have synchronized every detail. At 0 hour, the skies will erupt with a coordinated storm. Waves of Su-57S screaming across the border at supersonic speeds, escorted by swarms of Iranian drones acting as loyal wingmen, while ballistic and cruise missiles provide overwhelming saturation fire from the ground. These Russian fighters will not come alone. Loaded with R-37M hypersonic missiles capable of striking targets beyond 400 kilometers, the Su-57S can engage Israeli F-35S and F-15S from standoff distances long before they enter visual range. Their superior speed and thrust vectoring allow them to dictate the fight, slashing through Israeli airspace, destroying airborne early warning aircraft, and systematically dismantling air defense radar sites. Tel Aviv's defenses, long considered impenetrable, will face an unprecedented multi-axis nightmare. While Iron Dome and Arrow systems struggle to handle incoming missile barrages, the Su-57S will exploit their wide radar coverage and electronic warfare capabilities to blind Israeli sensors. One by one, key nodes, command centers, air bases, munitions, depots, and even critical infrastructure around the city will fall under precise, high-speed strikes. The 2-4-hour window is merciless. In the first hours, Iranian pilots, trained alongside Russian instructors, will establish temporary air superiority over key corridors. Su-57S will use their internal bays to deliver heavy, precision-guided munitions without compromising their profile, then switch to dogfighting mode if any Israeli fighters dare to rise. The twin-engine redundancy means even battle-damaged jets can return home, unlike single-engine platforms that risk total loss from one hit. Civilian areas in Tel Aviv will not be spared the psychological shock. As explosions light up the night sky and sonic booms rattle windows, panic will spread. Emergency sirens will wail continuously while Israeli leadership scrambles to evacuate key personnel and activate every last reserve. But with F-35 squadrons already proven ineffective against this new threat level, the once dominant Israeli Air Force will be forced into a desperate defensive posture. This is not a limited retaliatory strike. This is a calculated decapitation operation designed to cripple Israel's ability to project power for weeks, if not months. The combination of Russian aerial supremacy and Iranian numbers creates a volume of fire that no current Western-backed system in the region was designed to withstand. In less than a day, the strategic map of the Middle East could be redrawn forever. The myth of Israeli invincibility in the air will shatter under the weight of Russian engineering and Iranian resolve. What happens in those critical 24 hours will echo across the globe, from Washington to Moscow, from Riyadh to Beijing. The question is no longer if the blow will land, but how devastating the impact will be when 200 Su-57S darken the skies over Tel Aviv. As the shadow of 200 Su-57S looms over Tel Aviv, panic has gripped the corridors of power in Washington. The Pentagon is in full crisis mode, with emergency meetings stretching through the night as intelligence reports confirm the devastating reality. Iran now possesses a fifth-generation air force capable of challenging American and Israeli dominance in the skies. President Trump's unusual silence speaks volumes. While the world waits for his trademark fiery rhetoric or late-night posts, the White House has gone quiet. No bold declarations of overwhelming force, no immediate threats of direct intervention. Insiders say the so-called dealmaker is carefully calculating every move, wary of escalating a conflict that could spiral out of control just as domestic priorities demand attention. This rare restraint reveals a deeper truth. Washington understands the dangerous new equation on the battlefield and is struggling to find an effective response. In a desperate bid to reassert control, the United States has rushed massive naval reinforcements into the region. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, already on station in the Arabian Sea since late January, has been joined by additional assets. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's most advanced supercarrier, was deployed despite ongoing maintenance challenges, only to suffer a serious fire incident that forced it into repairs in the Mediterranean. Now, the USS George H.W. Bush is steaming toward the Middle East to bolster the presence, creating an unprecedented concentration of American naval power. These carrier strike groups represent the pinnacle of U.S. military might, floating air bases packed with F-35Cs, Super Hornets, Growlers, and E-2 Hawkeyes, escorted by guided missile destroyers and cruisers. Yet even this show of force exposes the limits of American power. The carriers have been forced to operate at a safer distance, hundreds of miles from Iranian shores, and well beyond the effective range of potential Su-57 strikes and advanced anti-ship missiles. What was once a symbol of unchallenged projection is now operating in a defensive posture, carefully avoiding waters where Russian supply technology could turn them into high-value targets. This deployment stretches the U.S. Navy to its breaking point. With multiple carriers tied down in the Middle East for extended periods, America's ability to respond to simultaneous crises elsewhere, particularly in the Asia-Pacific, is severely compromised. The fleet is juggling maintenance, schedules, crew fatigue, and logistical strain just to maintain presence in one theater. For a superpower that once boasted global reach without hesitation, these constraints highlight a harsh new reality. Even the mightiest military machine has operational limits when confronted with determined, technologically upgraded adversaries. The geopolitical fallout is equally alarming. Traditional Arab allies in the Gulf are watching nervously, quietly reassessing their reliance on the American security umbrella. Some have already begun back-channel communications with Tehran, recognizing that Washington's guarantees no longer feel absolute. Israeli confidence in unconditional U.S. support is also cracking, as the flow of advanced Russian fighters exposes vulnerabilities that billions in American aid could not prevent. Inside the Beltway, fingers are pointing in every direction. Intelligence agencies are being grilled over how such a massive transfer escaped early detection. Lawmakers from both parties are demanding answers about why American technological superiority appears increasingly fragile against a Russia-Iran partnership that operates outside traditional Western frameworks. The once unquestioned assumption that money and alliances could always maintain dominance is crumbling under the weight of rapidly shifting realities on the ground. Washington now finds itself in a reactive mode rather than dictating terms. Every additional deployment, every new sanction threat, and every diplomatic overture is met with calculated countermeasures from the Tehran-Moscow axis. The United States, long accustomed to being the uncontested referee of regional conflicts, is discovering the frustration of playing catch-up against opponents who refuse to fight on America's preferred terms. This is more than a tactical setback in one theater. It signals a profound shift in the global balance. The image of invincible American power, projected through carrier battle groups and stealth fighters, is being challenged in real time. Allies and adversaries alike are taking notes, questioning how long the era of U.S. primacy can endure when even its most advanced assets must operate with caution. The coming days will test Washington's resolve like never before. Can the superpower adapt quickly enough to restore deterrence, or will the arrival of Russian Su-57s in Iranian hands mark the beginning of a permanent erosion of American influence across the Middle East and beyond? Beyond steel, radar waves, and hypersonic missiles lies a force far more powerful than any aircraft or carrier group, the unbreakable will of a nation that refuses to bow. Iran is not fighting with borrowed power. Every Su-57 now on its soil is merely a tool. The true weapon is the fierce determination burning in the hearts of its people and its armed forces. This is a nation that has endured 45 years of sanctions, isolation, and constant threats, yet has never surrendered its sovereignty. That resilience is now colliding head-on with a superpower accustomed to buying loyalty and outsourcing its wars. Look at the fundamental difference. On one side stands Iran, a civilization with over 2,500 years of history, a people who see this conflict not as a border dispute, but as an existential battle for dignity and independence. Iranian soldiers, pilots, and commanders are not mercenaries chasing contracts or career promotions. They fight for something deeper: the honor of their homeland, the memory of past humiliations under foreign domination, and the unshakable belief that no outsider has the right to dictate their future. This sense of national pride transforms ordinary men into formidable warriors who are willing to endure hardship, accept sacrifice, and push beyond what technology alone can achieve. Compare that to the other side. America and its allies project power through expensive hardware and fragile coalitions. Their strength is largely rented, built on financial leverage, technological contracts, and temporary alliances that can fracture the moment the cost becomes too high. When American pilots climb into their cockpits, many are professionals doing a job. When Iranian pilots strap into their Su-57S, they carry the weight of their ancestors, the expectations of their families, and the conviction that defeat is not an option. One fights with a paycheck, the other fights with a cause. This is the classic confrontation between internal strength and external power. Internal strength rooted in shared identity, historical memory, and a clear sense of justice creates endurance that no budget can match. External power, no matter how sophisticated, often proves brittle when tested over time. History has shown this repeatedly. Great empires with superior weapons have fallen to determined peoples defending their soil. Vietnam, Afghanistan, and now the unfolding reality in the Middle East all echo the same lesson. Technology, without the will to use it ruthlessly and persistently, eventually reaches its limit. Iran's fighting spirit is visible in every layer of its defense. Pilots train relentlessly in simulators and real flights, knowing they may face overwhelming odds, yet refusing to yield airspace. Ground crews work around the clock to keep these advanced jets combat-ready, driven not by overtime pay, but by the knowledge that their efforts directly protect the nation. Even ordinary citizens, hardened by years of economic pressure, display a quiet resolve that surprises Western analysts. They understand that this struggle is not about one leader or one regime. It is about whether a proud nation will remain free or submit once again to foreign dictates. This spirit also explains why Iran has mastered the art of asymmetric warfare so effectively. When you lack unlimited resources, you learn to maximize every advantage, innovate under pressure, and turn limitations into strengths. The arrival of Russian Su-57S does not replace this spirit, it amplifies it. Those jets become extensions of Iranian will, faster, deadlier instruments carrying the same unbreakable determination. Washington often underestimates this factor. They see spreadsheets of aircraft numbers, missile inventories, and GDP figures. They rarely account for the human element, the willingness to absorb losses, maintain cohesion under fire, and continue fighting even when the odds appear impossible. Yet it is precisely this intangible quality that has repeatedly humbled technologically superior forces throughout history. In the coming hours and days, as Su-57S patrol Iranian skies and prepare for decisive action, remember this: weapons can be supplied, but courage cannot be imported. Alliances can be formed, but genuine resolve must be grown from within. Iran possesses that resolve in abundance. It is forged in decades of resistance, tempered by hardship, and now armed with modern tools. The battle for the Middle East will not be decided solely by radar signatures or missile ranges. It will be decided by which side possesses the stronger spirit, the one that views retreat as betrayal of its very identity, or the one that calculates every move based on political polls and budget constraints. When the dust settles over Tel Aviv and the region, the world may finally recognize a timeless truth. In the end, it is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog that determines victory. What we are witnessing in these dramatic hours is far larger than a single aerial confrontation over Tel Aviv or even a regional war in the Middle East. The arrival of 200 Su-57S on Iranian soil, combined with the visible limits of American power projection, marks a historic inflection point, the visible acceleration of a new multipolar world order that has been quietly emerging for years. For nearly 3 decades after the end of the Cold War, the international system rested on a single pillar: unchallenged American hegemony. Washington set the rules, controlled the financial architecture, dominated technological standards, and maintained military superiority that no combination of rivals could seriously contest. That era is now visibly cracking under the weight of its own contradictions and the determined pushback from a coalition of states unwilling to accept permanent subordination. The Russia-Iran axis, strengthened through years of sanctions, evasion, technology exchange, and mutual support on multiple battlefields, has become one of the most effective challengers to that old order. Moscow's willingness to transfer advanced combat aircraft, even at the cost of its own inventory, demonstrates a strategic calculation that goes beyond immediate tactical gains. By empowering Iran with fifth-generation capability, Russia is not only bolstering a key partner, it is actively eroding the credibility of American security guarantees across the entire region. This development sends a powerful signal to every capital, from Riyadh to Ankara, from New Delhi to Brasilia. The American security umbrella, once considered ironclad, now has measurable holes. Gulf monarchies that long depended on U.S. protection are already recalibrating their foreign policies, quietly exploring hedging strategies and alternative security arrangements. The image of U.S. carrier strike groups forced to maintain safe distances while advanced Russian-designed fighters operate freely in the same theater shatters the perception of overwhelming dominance. At the same time, Beijing is watching with intense strategic interest. China has long studied the dynamics of great power competition, and the current crisis offers a live laboratory. While Beijing maintains public restraint, it is absorbing critical lessons about the effectiveness of asymmetric capabilities. The vulnerabilities of expensive high-tech platforms in contested environments, and the political constraints that limit American freedom of action. The deepening partnership between Moscow and Tehran also strengthens the broader Eurasian alignment that includes China, creating a loose but increasingly coordinated network capable of challenging Western initiatives on multiple fronts simultaneously. This is the essence of multipolarization in action. No single power seeks to replace the United States as the sole global hegemon in the old sense. Instead, a constellation of rising and resurgent centers Russia with its military-industrial depth and energy resources, China with its economic gravity and technological momentum, Iran with its geographic position and ideological resilience are collectively demonstrating that the world can no longer be managed from one capital. The illusion of liberal hegemony, built on the premise that Western values, institutions, and military power would remain universally dominant, is collapsing in real time. Decades of overextension, endless conflicts justified under the banner of global leadership, and the weaponization of financial systems have produced fatigue both at home and abroad. Allies and partners increasingly question whether Washington's commitments are sustainable or even desirable when they come with such high costs and unpredictable outcomes. In this emerging landscape, traditional alliances are being tested and often found wanting. NATO members in Europe confront the reality that American attention and resources are finite. The Middle East crisis drains capacity that might otherwise be directed toward other theaters, forcing difficult conversations about burden sharing and strategic autonomy. Meanwhile, countries in the global south observe these events and draw their own conclusions about the wisdom of tying their futures too closely to any single superpower. The transfer of advanced Russian fighters to Iran also highlights a crucial shift in the global arms market and technology diffusion. For years, Western defense industries enjoyed near monopoly status on cutting-edge systems. That monopoly is fracturing. Nations, once dependent on American or European suppliers, now have credible alternatives that come without political strings attached. This diffusion of military capability accelerates the trend toward a more pluralistic international system where power is distributed rather than concentrated. Economically, the conflict is accelerating de-dollarization efforts and the search for alternative trade and financial mechanisms. As energy flows and shipping routes face disruption, nations are forced to diversify supply chains and payment systems. The Russia-Iran partnership, already experienced in circumventing sanctions, provides both a model and practical infrastructure for others seeking greater independence from Western-controlled systems. What makes this moment truly transformative is its irreversibility. Even if diplomatic efforts eventually de-escalate the immediate crisis, the demonstration of vulnerability in American power projection, the normalization of advanced technology transfers between non-Western powers, and the visible erosion of unipolar assumptions cannot be undone. The psychological impact alone, the realization that the post-Cold War order was never as stable or eternal as portrayed, will shape decision-making in capitals worldwide for generations. We are not returning to a bipolar world resembling the Cold War. We are entering something more complex and fluid, a multipolar reality where multiple centers of power compete, cooperate, and constrain one another according to shifting interests rather than rigid ideological blocks. In this new environment, success will belong to those who adapt quickly, build resilient partnerships, and recognize that raw military or economic power must be complemented by strategic patience and ideological coherence. The events unfolding now over the skies of the Middle East are therefore not an isolated incident, but a vivid chapter in the larger story of global rebalancing. The old order is not disappearing overnight in a single cataclysm, but it is steadily dissolving under the pressure of determined challengers and its own accumulated weaknesses. A new framework of international relations, more contested, more diverse, and ultimately more reflective of actual global power distribution, is taking shape before our eyes. The delivery of 200 Su-57s is a powerful symbol of this transition. It represents technological defiance, strategic audacity, and the willingness of rising powers to reshape the rules rather than merely accept them. As the dust settles from the current crisis, the world will look different not because one side has achieved total victory, but because the very notion of singular dominance has been permanently undermined. The next 24 hours will decide the fate of the Middle East. With 200 Su-57s delivered straight from Putin, now under Iranian command, Tehran holds the key to rewriting history in real time. The balance of power that has defined the region for decades is hanging by a thread. How will Tel Aviv react when Russian stealth fighters darken its skies? Does the F-35 still have any chance against this overwhelming new reality? And how long can President Trump maintain his strange silence before he is forced to break it? The world is watching. The old order is crumbling, and a new era of multipolar power is rising from the flames of conflict. What do you think? Will it be raw national will and determination that decides the outcome, or will superior technology still prevail? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this video brought you valuable insight and hard-hitting analysis, do not forget to smash the like button, share it with fellow viewers who need to see the truth, and subscribe to the channel right now with notifications turned on. That way you will never miss any breaking developments as this historic crisis unfolds. The coming days will be decisive. Stay alert, stay informed. See you in the next video with even deeper analysis and unfiltered truth from the battlefield. Until then, thank you for watching, stay strong, and goodbye.